Okay, so let's take a look at the test out assignment. As you can see, for example, this week we have to complete, let's say 2.5 chapters. So if you go to a test out, the test out Security Pro, as you can see, there's 9 chapters, and then followed by the 2 exam. So do not take this exam yet, not yet, until I specify in the weekly task. So first focus on the 9 chapters. So like for example, like chapter 6, chapter 6 has 16 sections, and each section has, for example, a video lecture,
default settings, outdated firmware, or other exploits.
and then typically it's followed by the summary note or the facts, and it summarizes the previous lectures. And then this icon means the lab. So when you click the lab, so there's a given scenario, and there's some instructions, and you can start the lab. Okay, so there's a scenario, and then you can start the lab. Once you're done, you click done, and then there is a score, right? And then there's a solution. Oops. Right? And let's see. So the lab. And finally, there's a practice questions. And there's no time limit. The 5 questions, usually 5 to 10 or questions. So there's a practice questions. So you can start the exam. Okay. So once you finish the exam, you can get the feedback with the answer. Okay. Yes. Now, for the lab, a couple of students, like maybe not many, but 1 or 2 students usually, they complain, and they said they cannot really open the security lab. From my past experience, 99.9% of the time, it's a browser issue. So we have what? We have a Microsoft Explorer, we have a Google Chrome, Firefox, and Apple, the Safari, right? And each browser has different versions. So we have a limitless number of cases. But mostly it's the browser issue, but very likely, so if you go to testout.com, there's a knowledge base. Let's see, a knowledge base. And I think you should first read this. Okay, you should read this, but most important one is probably this one, how to enable pop-ups. So you should, for the lab, first you have to enable pop-ups. So there's an instruction for the Google Chrome, Explorer, and Safari, and Edges, and etc. Firefox, right? But maybe this is not right for you, because maybe the Google Chrome has different versions, right? And for example, if your browser is Internet Explorer 10, then you have to. I recommend that you should do a Google search. So for example, like Internet Explorer 10, how to enable pop-up, right? Then I think you can find the answer. I mean, these days, there's nothing you cannot find from Google search. Okay, so my point here is that you have to enable pop-ups for your browser. And another recommendation is, let's say you're using Internet Explorer, and if it does not work, then maybe you can switch to Google Chrome, or maybe you can switch to Firefox. Okay, so try a couple of browsers, and make sure that you enable pop-ups for all of them, right? Then usually the problem goes away. If you have still a problem, then please contact Testout technical support. Okay, so if you go to I think there is support to contact us, so just try to get a technical support from the Testout if you have an issue with a lab. I mean, there's nothing I can do. So whenever you have a technical issue, so please contact the Testout technical support people. Okay. Another thing is either me or my TA is going to download your grade from Testout every week, right? As you can in the syllabus, as I specified, I'm going to collect. If you look at the syllabus, I think it's in the syllabus, right? I'm going to collect your Testout scores every week. So as you can see, we have a 6-week, right? So end of every week. So for the first week, meaning end of like in the Wednesday, right? Right after due date. I'm going to download this for the individual students, right? Every week. And as you can see, Testout really like shows everything. Your performance wise, it shows, for example, like 1.11. It tells you how many minutes you spend for each video tutorial. Even for the let's say for the fact, for this particular student, he did not really read a fact summary note, so that means a blank, right? And then for the practice questions, right? His average score is a 70. He made 3 attempts. Okay. So your average will be counted for your grade, just like I said, and you can take the practice quiz or the lab up to 3 times, and then I'm gonna take the average. Okay. And then another thing is incomplete, just like I said in the syllabus, incomplete for the penalty for the incomplete work is 0.5% of your total grade, minus 0.5, less than 1%, but still. And another thing is, if I see too many empty cells, let's say for each week, if I see more than 5 empty, maybe 5 to 8, it depends. Let's just say, for now, for the first 5, if I see more than 5 empty slots, empty cells, I'll consider that as incomplete work. Okay, so make sure that at least you spend, let's say, like a couple of minutes. Let's say you watched the video tutorial, right? And if the video tutorial is it's, let's say, 10 minutes long, for example. But if you already know the material, I don't think you have to really, you don't have to really complete, you don't have to watch the whole video tutorial, right? You can just skim through, or maybe you can just look at like first 1 or 2 minutes, then you can skip, right? So that's fine. That's perfectly okay. But for this case, as you can see, the empty cell means he did not even take a look at it, right? So if I just see 5 or more empty cells, then I'll consider it as incomplete work, okay? And as you can see, you can take up to 3 times for the lab and then practice test, okay? So this is for each. So we can download this for each individual student. And another thing, let's take a look at your weekly task number 1. I said after first attempt, I highly recommend that you make a summary note, because the next time when you take the quiz, it's going to be same problem. I think you should get 100. Come on, I mean, after the first attempt, you will get a feedback with the answer, right? So the second and third time, I think everyone can get 100. And same for the lab. And for the lab, Not all of them, but a couple of them I'm going to post a hint. If I think the lab is too hard or it's too difficult, I'm going to post a hint. So you can take a look at the hint before you take the before you start the lab, okay? But not for chapter 1. So chapter 1, I think you should able to finish the lab. But anyway, so is there anything that I should say? Let's see, 3 times, up to 3 times. Oh, another thing, yeah. So from my experience, not many students take the quiz up to 3 times. Usually take 1 or 2 times. And then but if you're really willing to take your test up to 3 times, my recommendation is for the first time, just take 2 times, right? And then reserve the last one for your midterm. So for example, a couple of days before the midterm or the final, if you want to review your each sections, then maybe after you reviewed each sections, then you can use the last chance, right? So maybe that's my recommendation. If you really want to take the practice questions up to 3 times or the lab, my recommendation is take it 2 times and then save the last chance for the midterm or the final, right? So a couple of days before the midterm and the final, you can use the last chance, which is a 3rd attempt, right? That way you can review the material, right, before the midterm or the final exam. Okay. Let's see, is there anything that I should say? Let's go to the test out. Let's see. Yes, as you can see, there's a chapter 1 and chapter 2 is not much, but starting from the chapter 3, typically chapter 4 is relatively short, but chapter 5 and chapter 6, by the way, the chapter 5 and chapter 6 and chapter 9 are probably the most important chapters, 5 and 6 and 9. And the thing is, for example, chapter 6, it has like 16 sections. So yes, so it's going to be so just make sure that when you study chapter 5 and 6 and 9, make sure that you allocate enough time to study these 3 chapters. And as you can see, we only have a 6 week, and these are the 9 chapters. That's like trying to finish 9 chapters in 6 weeks. It's pretty challenging. I have to admit that. So please work hard and find a nice and quiet place which has an internet connection, and make sure that you allocate enough time, enough time to complete your assignment for each week, okay? And if you get behind, it's very hard to catch up because we have only 6 weeks. And so please don't get behind, okay? That's all I can say for the test out assignment. If there's anything that I need to say more, then I'm gonna create another video clip. Now I'll try to, and I'll post it on the Blackboard. Okay, thank you. Bye.